Hello everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another add-on office hours sessions. Just a quick introduction. My name is Matthew. I'm a customer success manager here at Juiced. Today we have Todd and Justin on with us. I'll let them introduce themselves.
What's up, Justin Alfiero, digital marketing specialist.
And I'm Todd Justice, the Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Security Officer as well. Wearing many hats now.
Great. So just as always, just want to go through a few housekeeping. We're here to answer questions about our add-ons, anything about any add-on. It does not have to be specifically Excel docs. I know that's today's topic. We ask that if you do have questions, especially while other people are asking theirs, please raise your hand so that we can get to you guys in an orderly fashion. And we're going to try to keep it to about 5 to 7 to 10 minutes, depending on the question. Also, at the end of today's meeting, there's going to be a poll or a survey, actually. If you wouldn't mind staying to the end, if you're around, if you have time, that'd be awesome, just so we can get some feedback on what you guys are looking for in the future. And like I said, today's spotlight topic is generating a custom Excel spreadsheet for multiple records at once. Last week, we went over going over a subtable, how to set everything up in Excel docs from basically inception, which you just generated your first document, to putting the subtable in. Now we're going to be doing multiple documents at once. So before we jump into that, I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to ask questions about their questions, their add-ons. So I'm going to leave the floor open to you guys for now. Anything people have in mind before we get started? And again, does not need to be Excel docs related, but if there's no questions, I'm going to hand it off to Todd, and we are going to get into Excel docs.
Okay, all right, great. Yeah, and if anybody does have questions, you think of them along the way, let's make this interactive. It doesn't have to be so formal. So if you if you thought of something and you want to jump in.
So Rob did jump in on the chat.
Okay.
Rob does have questions about Excel docs.
Okay.
Rob, I think your question might be touched upon in Todd's presentation. So we're going to
Then I'll just kind of present where I'm at and see where it goes after that then.
All right, good.
We had a template that our production people were using in their production paperwork, and it was formatted kind of oddly, I guess. Would you say that, Matthew?
I wouldn't say that exactly. But...
Okay, but anyway, it consisted of multiple lines from the record stacked on each other inside an Excel spreadsheet. And when it reached a certain point, they wanted to move to a new page. So basically it could be printed out in 8.5 by 11 sheets grouped together. So after last week's office hours, I saw a great opportunity to exploit Excel docs to do that. And Matthew, all your helps took me a long way. Just that now I've gotten to where I can get 6 out of 7 records in an 8.5 by 11 sheet, and then it starts doing funky things with lines and actually, adding a line rather than adding a tab puts records below the format that they want to do. So that's what I was trying to achieve. I'd say I'm 95% there. So let's see what comes out of today's presentation, see if that takes me where I need to go.
Yeah, and I think, and remind me if I'm wrong, Rob, but we ended up making multiple subtables, correct?
Sorry, I went mute on that. Yeah, we did create multiple subtables, and I can share that when we need to, if we need to.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll probably need to take a look at that, Rob. That would be best.
Okay.
So I could get a feel for what that looks like.
So after the presentation, maybe?
Is that what you want to do, Matthew? You want to do it now?
It is related to Excel docs. So, we could start off now or
All right.
All
right. Well, that's going to be, so this is going to be more multiple record processing.
Mhm.
That sounds like a document template type configuration more.
Yes, I would agree with that. It seems like during one of the subtables being created, we're pushing an extra line in there. I think it's going to be kind of a mix of the line items tabs, just a matter of getting those numbers right.
Yeah, and quite possibly, Rob, we may have to have a look at this. I may have to look at the template a little bit, and so it might be an offline thing, but we certainly will
Sure.
get back to you on that. But we'll try to decipher what we can for sure during this presentation. But maybe we may have to take it offline, and then we'll figure something out for sure. Because often it's just a matter of, I guess, looking at it a little harder and really diving in, trying some different configuration changes and stuff. So,
Okay,
because sometimes they aren't as straightforward as what I present. So that's for sure.
Yeah, and we can definitely touch upon that. I think we should go into the presentation, and then
Sure.
we'll touch back on that, Rob.
Okay.
no problem.
All right, thanks.
All right. So I'll share my screen. So okay, what I kind of wanted to do first is just point out, because I'll refer to it, the fact that Justin has done a great job of laying out all our recordings. It's in our help site. So Justin, you may want to, I could post this. This is available for everyone right now, right, Justin?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so each of the week's recordings are actually in our help site, qbtools.helpdocsonline.com, right? And he's done a great job. If you click on him, it kind of gives you the timestamps of where we spoke about different options and different features and different discussions. So PDFs with Excel docs started at minute 36. So if you needed to kind of read, what I know we spoke about something. What I wonder where I can find that again. This is going to potentially help you. So instead of having to go through the whole thing, the whole recording, just wanted to point that out.
Thanks, Todd.
So for today, the discussion will be on processing multiple records, right, with Excel docs. So, last time on the 10th, we went into document templates to a certain degree. So it was like a primer on Excel docs, going into some of the different details in a document template record, how to configure that. Okay, so I'm not necessarily going to dive too much into a document template, although I will bring some up to show some nuances as it pertains to what I'm going to speak about today. But for the most part, it won't be document templates. Okay, but like I said, however, if there are questions on that after, we can certainly pick that up, after my little topic discussion. So from last week, if we I just want to reference again last week's presentation in that, we showed how to generate an Excel docs document based off of a project record, and then we listed out there was a relationship to an expenses table, and we sort of generated a nice template. I think I have the template. This is what the template looked like. It kind of filled it in nice per each project, put some project information at the header, and then it filled in the table below with the actual expense records. So today, I want to actually, so today I want to show you, and I'm going to show the relationship diagram that I picked up last week. I showed this as well. So last week's discussion again was, here's a project, and let me fill that sheet I just showed you with expense sheets related to the project, right? So it was a one-to-many here, right? Projects to expense sheets. So, but today what I want to do is I want to show you, okay, we were just generating one expense sheet. Right now, today we're going to go, okay, I have projects, right? And my projects have multiple people assigned to it. So here's on my project employees table. And with that, each employee has an expense sheet, right? So we're gonna go from the project and generate an expense sheet per each employee. Okay, so you know, basically it's going to go, you know, for every related employee record, generate an expense sheet for all of them and store them at the project employee level. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to show today. All right, so let me pull up. The test record, right? The project record. One thing I want to point out. So here last week I clicked this button basically, and we looked at the code, and it generated an expense sheet for all this data. So down below here on the same project record, I'm showing you then the employee records, the related employees to the project. So all these employees are on the project, and they have expense sheets for each one of them. And we want to basically click a button and generate per each employee an expense sheet, right? And so let me now what's different, okay, between this, what we did here, and what we're going to do here with this green button involves a document template change, and I'm going to show that in a second, and then some changes to our formula URL code behind the button. All right, and we're going to go into detail on that. So let me show you the document template record. I know I said again that I might refer to it, and I'm going to, just not in huge detail, right? So we went over this last week. It's in the recording. So this is the document template record for the projects, and for the project generate an expense sheet, right? So that's what we did. We went over this last week, and you know, and so now the new template. So I had to just adjust this just a little bit. So I had to create a new template record for what we want to do now, which is generate at the project level, still generate for all my employees an expense sheet for everyone. All right. So if I'm pulling up the next template here, so you can kind of, I'm going to point out the difference. So the only difference here is the fact that you know, now the master table is called project employees, because we want to generate per each project employee an expense sheet. And then that DBID has to go in right here. So if we look back at the template from last week, which is right here, projects, and here's the master table. The only change again, well, the only change here at this level is, again, the master table is now project employees. The only change at the subtable level down here is the fact that in this subtable record, right, where we're going to pull all the actual expense sheet data related to the project. The only change, and I'll show it right here, is the query, right? Because I have a different table, different relationships. So on the expense table, you know, field 18 was a related project, and on the expense sheet table for project employees, it's the related project employee is field 19. So that's really the only changes I had to do to do a batch, if you will, of all my project employees and expense sheet for everyone, generate an expense sheet for everyone. All right, so that's from from a template perspective. Now I'm going to take you through. I believe last week we may have gone through the formula URL for the button that I clicked. I believe we did. If not, we're going to go through it in more detail anyway right now, because it's of importance now. So that was last week's button code. All right, and you know, this week's button code is right here. And so I have a few, I have some comments in here, so because we're gonna utilize these other parameters in a little bit. But what we're gonna do here for creating our project employee expense sheets, there was a couple of changes, right? So we're running this from the project, but we're going to be pointing at the project employees table, right? And so that's the DBID parameter, right, in the formula URL code, right? And all of these, by the way, are all listed out in the help, you know, so if I'm skimming over like app ID, you know, we don't really necessarily have to go through what these mean. The template DBID is here, so, but I'm just going to point out the main things that would change. So the DBID for the project employees table goes here on line 4. Now line 6 is that template, that new template record that I showed you. I was just showing you the document template ID, record ID is 36. And then the only other change is this MS query, because in the prior formula URL code, there was a parameter called MSID because we were just going straight from the project record and we were going to get all the related expense records, right? But here we're saying for the project employees table, query it using the related field with the record ID from the project. So get me all project employee records for this project. Essentially, that's what this is doing, this query. Okay, so, and let me keep this up and let me bring up, I'm going to bring up again, just so we see it and again, is I'm going to bring up the button from last week. Again, the project to expense sheet, right? So I'm going to, let me get rid of these lines. These don't have to be comments here. Okay. So this is the project to expense sheet code. And if you look, everything is basically the same except for the template ID and actually and the DBID, right? Because we're running that against the project instead of project employees table. Template ID again was 17. And then line 8 says MSID. So we're with the MSID, we're saying we just want to use this one record, just create an expense sheet for this project, right? Whereas in our other button code for project employee expense sheets, we want to say, give me all the get me all the project employees related to this specific project. And oh, by the way, store it in a file, store it in the field. These are the fields that the on the project employees table, the file attachment ID 62, and then a date. All right, so those are also fields on the project employees table that would have to change here too, just to make sure you store it in the proper location. All right, so I will run this code. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So we're just going to run it, and it's going to, and so we're generating it from the project, and we're just going to go right to that project employees table and start generating all of the expense sheets for all my related employees. And so here it's telling me 5 documents were generated. So there's 5 employees, as you can see down below. If I close this and refresh, we're going to see the change to the. So here 219, it generated expense sheets for everyone here, and then so all these were just generated, and you know we can have a look at them. So you know here each one of these has the detail related strictly to that particular employee. Oops, so here's one right here. So this is for Joseph Wallace, right? Close these, you know, and then we have one here for Evelyn, all right? So all her specific expense records are in the sheet. Okay, so that's so pretty handy. You can generate all these records, but one button click, generate all the expense sheets for every employee related to the project. So that's one scenario. with creating multiple, with processing multiple records and creating multiple documents. Now, I'm going to go back into the button code for this, what I just ran, right? And now we say, okay, that was great. We generated all those documents, no problem. But I want to, we have other options that go along with multi-record processing, and I want to sort of bring that in, meaning merge. So now that you created them all, and they will get stored at the lowest level, the project or the lower level, the project employee level. How about we also create one at the project level as a consolidated file, and that's done with a process we call merging. So merge all the documents that were just generated and store them up at the project level. Okay, so these are the other parameters that I'm going to introduce into the code. Now everything else stays the same. So we still running off the project employees, this template ID, the file name staying the same. We're still querying and grabbing all the records. But now we're going to merge. We're going to say, merge to this table, our current table, DBID. Merge and put the file attachment or the file after it's generated into field 242 and store it on this specific record. So that's what the merge rid is. Give me the record ID of the record where you want me to store this thing. I'm going to stay on the project, And then give me a file name, all project employee expense sheets. And then also give me a date and timestamp, field 243. So I just introduced those into the button code. I'm going to save this. And now when we run, we should see it update the date and put in a merged file. So I'm going to just run this. And it's still creating all the documents at the lower level, the project employee level. But now it's taking them all and merging them together as well. So it's generating and merging. It's going to create one PDF of everything. Hopefully. I didn't get that wrong. I think I got the code right. No.
It's definitely thinking.
Yeah. Well, worst case, I had run it earlier to make sure it does work. So I'll just bring that up if this doesn't cooperate. All right, since I have run it before, I'm going to pull up that merged file. So go away. Oh, it's still there. Okay. All right. So here is the actual file itself. Let me pull it open. So this is now. So we generated all the files for all the project-related employees, and now we're going, okay, it's great you created them all, but I need them all in one file so I can print them out or whatever. So this is going to be, again, this is Joseph Wallace, Edward Thompson, Evelyn Morales. So it's all their specific sheets in one. I can print it and do whatever I need to do, email it, etc. Right? So that's that. Let's see if that ever came back. Oh yeah, it did come back. Oh, there it goes. Oh, the operation time, that great. All right, so let me see. Yeah, it did create it. It is here.
And Todd, would that be a good example of one that would use progress bar? Then you at least be able to see that it's still loading.
Yeah, well, that form does, there isn't really a progress bar on that form in particular, loading panel form. But yeah, we can probably introduce one into that. So So it did create, it should be here. It is right here, 223. And now what I want to do, hopefully it's going to cooperate now that I showed that. So again, that's just another option. So obviously the first option was just generate all the documents. Second option was, okay, now that you generate them all, keep doing that, but merge them all together so I have a copy of them. And then this last option is, well, I don't want to merge them. I'm not going to merge them, but I want you to put them all, we can put them all in the same workbook. So there's some down here I'm going to use. And I grouped the comments in the code to show the different, the different sections of what we're trying to do here. Obviously, everything up the top stays the same, but down here we're going, place all the documents in one spreadsheet. So we can put it all in what's called the same workbook. So same workbook equals Y. Where we're going to store this, what field ID we're going to store it. So on the project record, and this is where we're going to store it. And this is what the record ID of where to store it, the current record. So let's run that. Hopefully it's going to cooperate a little bit better than that last transaction. So, okay, so now we're going to run. So it's not going to merge. It'll just consolidate them all into one spreadsheet. Okay, there. That was a lot quicker. All right, so now I just that should be right here. That's the one we just created. So let's look at this spreadsheet now. All right, I'll bring it over to the other screen. So this spreadsheet now, instead of the one PDF, it's same workbook. So put all my records in one Excel, tab by tab by tab. So that's same workbook, and now I have them in an Excel sheet, which I guess would be handy. Again, depends on your use case. All right. Okay, so those are those various options for multiple record processing and different options for merging and for storing in the same workbook, etc. There was one thing I want to go back to. There was a question last week. By the way, I'm not done with batch processing. I have one more option I want to show you, but there was a question last week I just remembered, and I want to kind of go back to that. I'm not sure who asked the question, but I think it's pretty important. It was basically basically dumping down multiple records into a spreadsheet. And so let me show you what I mean. I'm going to run it. So I'm going to say create Excel from report name. So I'm going to create this Excel sheet. And this is really going to be a dump of records from my customers table. So here it is, right? So this is a dump of records from my actually it's from my opportunities table. So these are all became active customers, right? So I'm just showing all the different active opportunities that converted to active accounts, right? So that's what this is showing, right? But the cool thing and again, this is multiple records coming from one table. The nice thing about this way that this gets generated, and it was related to a question last week, and I didn't completely answer it, and I wanted to just kind of go back to an option that you can do with what I just showed you. So all I did to generate that particular sheet was I added a document template record, right, with basically nothing in it. I mean, I just said report query for active opportunities, and I added the sheet. And this sheet is essentially, it's right here. So this is a sheet with a header. That's about it. Just a header, one tab. And the query, so that's all I needed for the document template record, right? Then I added a subtable Excel record, right? And if we look at this is pretty basic in that, we're giving it the DBID of the opportunities, the opportunities table, and then we're giving it a C list to say, and put the values in these different columns. But the cool thing was, and it is, we can just use a query, and this can be standard query syntax that Quickbase has that we went over last week. But I wanted to show you the fact that you could also type in a report name, right? And that's all it's doing. It's going, there's a report under my opportunities table called active opportunities, okay? And that lists out three opportunities that converted from leads, right? I don't know what the status is, but they're active. And you know, we're just taking that report, right? And that report name and just dumping it right into the query. So you don't necessarily have to use query syntax for Quickbase. Now, you know, granted, this doesn't really allow you to drive it via variables, relationship, master detail type scenarios, which we went over last week. But, you know, this can be very handy, right, Matthew? I know Matthew was like, you know, this is something we should show because it's pretty handy. And it was sort of related to what we spoke about last week. So,
Yep.
But, you know, everything else is basic in here. Again, the DBID of the table and the C list to show what the columns. We're doing some subtotaling, you know, inserting new rows, you know, I'm putting it on the sheet one, group things, you know, that's what I showed with that, you know, made it a little more fancier with what I just showed you. But, you know, obviously none of that is required, but you could simply dump data down using reports. So I just wanted to show that as well. And now one more option for batch processing that, you know, what the example I showed before, project employees, expense sheets, you know, that works fine, but we cap that kind of processing at 50 records, right? So because these are web-based processes and they can't run forever, right? So there's another option that we have to run batch, and this gets installed automatically into your apps when you install Quick Excel Docs. And so there's these tables get installed automatically, Excel Docs batch processing, and then Excel Docs batch processing logs. So this will actually log the runs every time you click the button. And so if we look at this record, okay, so, and this is unlike what I showed you before where I was on a project record. This is a table that is on its own, completely independent. And we're gonna define in what's called Excel Docs batch processing arguments field, we're gonna define all the variables that will drive how and where to generate the batch of documents, if you will. Okay, so I want to take you through the arguments because it's important. So again, this is a strictly independent table, but we're going to use it. You know, it could be reporting, it could be Excel Docs reporting, it could be whatever you want. I mean, and again, and this is the batch processing table, and hanging off of this is your batch processing logs table, which will catalog every time you run it, how many documents were processed, you know, how long did it run, etc. So the most important part of this, besides the document template that drives this, which I can go into quickly, but I wanted to show you the parameters, right? So very similar to the button code, the formula URL button code that we just saw, but it gets laid out a little differently because this is not a formula URL, it's just a text field. So we're going to pump parameters, just like this, into a batch process, right? Via an email notification. And I can show you the email notification in a second. But, you know, essentially it's all the options that, you know, are in the regular button code, app DBIDs. So, you know, in this example, we're going to say, we're going to go off the projects table, right? We're going to generate a project sheet, time sheet, expenses. So I'll show you, it's actually, this is the template. It's somewhat involved. It's kind of cool actually, but you know, this is the template that the batch process will generate. And you know, it's going to list out all the employees and hours and then calculate equipment, as a subtable here for equipment. So it'll do a whole bunch. It's going to populate over here. It's going to populate all time entry here, expense sheets here, expense data here, and equipment data here. So, and then it'll pop in some other summary fields as well. You know, in order to generate that, you know, we just have to give it some parameters, you know, and so it's we're going to run it for every project, right? You know, again, template 16, and we'll show 16 in a second. The query says, you know, 3 is greater than 0. It basically says, give me every project. I want to generate the batch. I want to run this batch for every project record. So that's why this query is like this. So certainly you can make whatever query parameter or set, you know, parameters and syntax you would like. And you can also use a report ID, right? We spoke about that last week. This could be MS query equals 5 if you wanted to. File attachment ID, again, that's the project table, etc. Now, there's some other parameters here. Actually, let me pop down to line 17. We already saw these before, merging. So as part of this whole batch generation, I'd like to have the file stored right on my batch processing table. So send it some merge parameters, you know, current table, current real record ID. Here's the file attachment, merge FA 14, and name it this, right? And here's the date, time. And then right in the middle here, line 12 to line 16 says, these are the batch, you know, XLDB. So this is batch processing for Excel docs. Says, you know, what table are we running from? I mean, what's the record ID we're running from, right? The current record, right? The batch processing record. This XLDT field says, where do you want me to store the processing information, like the message that says, you know, the error message or the processing message says, hey, this process has just been kicked off. We, you know, we do that, and I'm going to show you that in the table in a second. So that's what this is used for. XLDB, the batch processing, where are we going to run from? The current table, right? So this is the current RID, current table. Here's the FID for the message, and then here's a log table. So by the way, you know, I want to store the log every time it runs. I'd like to log the run, and that's what this is. All right, so you know, pretty straightforward. Again, a lot of these parameters are what you would do normally behind a regular button click, right? Except we add some batch processing and some merging to make it a little bit more rich in the way it processes. So now, when I click this button, it will change. You will see. So it's going to send this set of parameters via an email notification to our batch processor, which sits on a server in the cloud. All right. So if I click this, it sets off the process, and here's that XLDB TFLD field right here, field 8, which says, oh, the batch process executed, started. Right. We can click refresh. We have a refresh button, and it'll show when it completes. And it completed it, and it goes and updates that trigger field again, that what we call the trigger field, which is like, okay, process is complete, etc. It logged a record in the log table to say, yeah, I processed 3 records, and this is when we did it. And then here is my merge file. So I kicked it off, processed everything, built all the docs, and now I want to see them. And they're also stored at every project record, as we saw before with project employees. But here's what it generated, which is kind of cool. There's a lot going on in this, which is neat. You know, there's our expenses, by the way. So here's the project, right? And then it's showing all the expenses on the project per each employee that's related to the project, and then a bunch of like equipment that was used on the project. You know, that's for one project. And here's the other project, Quickbase project, you know, and again, all the related info, different tables of information that we set up in the document template record to generate this. Here's another one. Here's the third project, Excel Docs test. You know, all again, time entry and expense data, equipment, etc. And then it actually even gives us some some summarization on the template also. So that, and you know, let me just, the template itself, it's somewhat involved, but you know, we've seen how to set these up before. So, you know, it's project summary, you know, it's the projects table. Here's the template, which we just looked at. And then here's all the queries that helps fill that template, you know. So there's some cool stuff that goes on in this, and maybe in a future session, we can actually go through some of the details on how to generate that, because it's actually a pretty neat document. And you know, let me just show you one last thing, just the email notification that kicks off. So when I click this execute button, which is really just a formula URL, you know, all this does is it just updates a field. It updates our field 8, right, with batch execution requested, right? And then it redirects back to the record. But by virtue of the edit record, right, we're updating a field, right? It kicks off an email notification, which is set up under this record, under this table. And here it is. So Excel docs batch request. And again, all this is set up in help. And all we're doing is we're notifying our process, right, via an email. And we're sending the batch logs, which we just went through. We're sending, and that's as simple as the email notification needs to be. Very straightforward. It has a filter here so that we don't have, so the button, so it doesn't get sent multiple times. When we kick it off, we don't want to, you know, kick off the notification again. So we're just kind of letting that process. And that's that for batch processing. I think I covered some real good use cases on it. And again, I want to be aware of time. I don't want to go too far and too deep, but if Matthew, I think what we'll do is, if you want, we can take some questions. We can go through some more in depth.
Yeah, I think you went very in depth there, and I thought that was very helpful, and it kind of sheds light onto other batch processes as well. It's not just Excel docs; it's all kind of a similar process.
Exactly right. Same paradigm for our other add-ons. Absolutely. Yes.
So that was great. As Todd said, though, you know, obviously he just talked about a whole lot of different options, really 4 different options on how to generate multiple documents at once. Does anyone have any questions on any of those options? We'd be happy to take them. And I think you did such a good job explaining, Todd, that people might not have questions.
I can't be. I can't be.
Well, in that case, I know we did have one client with a question, Rob, and that was about the template itself.
Right.
You know, now that we kind of covered the topic for the day, we would be happy to go back into that, because Rob, I think what you were trying to achieve might have actually looked something like the template that's going on for this Excel batch processor 1. Todd, if you wouldn't mind going back to that template, the subtables you have shown there, obviously a little bit more in depth than what Rob's trying to do, would sort of be down the line of what Rob's trying to accomplish. He has many different subtables being pulled into one sheet.
Right. Okay. Many different subtables pulled into one sheet.
Yep.
Okay. You know, let me.
I actually may have
So
this template, but
all right. You know, we do have an option where we can fill with a query down a sheet, and then when that's exhausted, so that query runs, pulls back, say 18 records. We have another option. We have what's called a sub-report query order, which says, okay, so after that query is run another query and put that data right under the first, but keep going down the sheet. So, okay, let's go to the next step, right? And then run another query if you want, after those are filled, and then put that in the third position, so to speak, like, so we have, we may have one set, two sets, and then the third set. So we do have options for that. I don't know if that can help.
So the other thing, Todd, and just because I'm looking at Rob's template, I don't know if Rob's still at his computer right now. He might not be.
I'm still here.
Oh, thanks, Rob. I'm looking at the template right now, and Todd and I actually did speak about this morning. You do have a lot of merged cells.
Right.
And one thing that Todd had explained to me this morning is we can populate into that merged cell. However, it will not expand based upon the data inside. Did I say that correctly, Todd?
Right, but we have, we have different ways to sort of potentially get around that, right?
Yep. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, Rob, would you mind if I shared your template?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
there might be some interest in just the
Okay.
general way it was put together. And
All right, good.
Yep. Todd, would you want me to email it to you quick, or do you want me to share it?
No, yeah, go ahead, share it. Yep, forget it. I'll stop.
Yep. All right.
All right.
This is what we have here.
Okay, all right. So where are we trying to fill?
okay.
So
So if you want to take it to the first tab, this is actually the result the first time I worked at it.
Okay,
Okay. And what I was getting was, you'll notice up there in that first cell that's
right,
bolded, that was actually a label cell. And then it got not the value one. Where it says 409-03A-100. Right there.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
That the first time I did it, this was done with just a single subtable.
okay,
And and this is the result that came out. It started that value was actually supposed to be about 3 down under where it says job bomb.
oh, okay.
Okay,
So-
but
Yeah,
when it took the data from the subtable and started populating, it started, like I said, 3 rows early,
okay,
and just from there, you can see kind of where it's peaking out in places where it shouldn't be. And if you go all the way to the bottom, that was the only row that went correctly
okay.
out of 7.
Now,
And then it populated the next tab because it did 7 and then started a second one.
okay,
Now you can see from here where everything's supposed to be as far as labels,
yes,
but the data just didn't go. Now, all that being said, numerous conversations with Matthew by email and stuff, and I got it to, I did 3 separate subtables. And the other thing I realized is when it says skip rows, that really means skip rows, not skip 2 rows. So some of this was fixed by changing the number from 10 to 9, because each of those labels was 10 apart, which went a long way to cleaning a lot of that up. But the problem was, getting it to jump to a single tab with 3 subtables, trying to populate the data and skipping rows, and then after max rows, skipping to a new tab. Each subtable created its own independent tab.
right.
So I can take it to my screen if you want, and I'll show you
Okay.
what it looks like now.
One question I have, Rob.
Sure.
Did you start in B17? Like, is that your first? Yeah.
Yep.
You did?
Yeah,
You said B7?
I can show you my templates that as they exist now, and and like I said, this was step 1, and Matthew and I went through a bunch of changes, and he hasn't had a chance to see my results since then. So if you want me to share screen.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Matthew, can you?
yeah,
And
does it give you the ability
Okay.
to, Rob?
Does it let you?
I think I just took it.
Yep, good job.
Okay, so you're seeing,
All right,
this is now the result from everything I've changed since then. And you'll see that skipping rows and just adding rows instead of adding tabs leaves me with data down here. And a curious thing here, if you look right here, it threw in an extra row somewhere along the way because everything else is lining up where it is. My formulas are not quite working to show the labels the way I want them, but that's an Excel thing. That's not a Quickbase or a Excel docs thing. But see, now I've got all the data coming where I expect it to until we get down right here, and then there's just one extra row in here, and this should, right here should be B71, but it threw in an extra row, and then when it populated, it put the data right there.
Which is what?
Which is, okay, so that's L71, which is where I want the data to be, but the merge cells are one row off. So I may be just doing some experimenting again, but then the other part is just trying to make this happen on a separate page. But
Okay.
Getting to I did. Okay, let me bring up. I started closing things to improve my audio quality while we were online and chose to kill the wrong one. Okay, so this is the basic template, which gives me the header on that spreadsheet.
Right.
And nothing really fancy about that. But down here are the three. Now, this one was, I recreated the original one, which had all of the cells together and, did all that crazy stuff. So we broke it into three separate subtables based on each row. So there's the B17 row. We've got the L11 row, or the 11 row has two fields, the 13 row has one field, and then the 17 has all those others. And overall, this works well to kind of get things in the right place. And if I never have more than 7 records, then everybody will be fine. With the insert new rows instead of a new tab. Is there anything else I need to show that would be helpful?
And each of those queries, they populate.
So each one of those three, okay, would populate one of these rows. So there's the 11 row.
Okay.
Okay, and then there's the
oh, I got you.
13 row, and then there's the 17 row.
Okay. Now, see where just to the right and down from where you are on the sheet, where it says FRES set W22. What is that?
This, okay.
Yeah, all the way. Yeah, where you
right there.
Where your cell location
Yeah,
is highlighted
just
right
to
now.
It should be like something like M22.
Yeah, what is that data right down for one
More
more,
down.
couple down? 22, yeah, that one. Now,
That
what
one?
is, yeah, what is
Okay,
that? Yeah.
that's correct data that's coming in, but for some reason, what I did was if this cell, okay, the formula for these empty cells says if I have data here, I should put the label here. So like parent assembly is that FRES set W22, and that repeats all the way down because, or not all the way down, but because some of them are a little, yeah, it does repeat. So these labels should show up if there's data down here for whatever happens to be there. It should highlight, light that up, and everything should have a label like you got up here and here and here. For some reason, it just isn't doing. In fact, originally this was calling for a value, but that was until I enabled editing, and then that populated correctly. So it went on here and it got that order number from the first three of here. But like I said, most of that seems to be more of an Excel thing I have to figure out more than a Quickbase Excel docs problem. Because, I mean, from the standpoint of positioning the data where I want it to, where I'd expect it to see, this is all looking real good. This is the correct order for the records until we get down here and that one row got set in, and I'm not sure why it did it after 6 instead of 7.
Right.
It might be considering your row header as one of those too. I'm not too sure. We may need to take a look at this a little further just because we are coming to the end of the
Sure.
allotted
And
time.
Yeah.
I understand. And
Yeah, sure. But
I'm not expecting instant results necessarily.
no, we can have a look at this for sure. Yeah.
So, Robert, I do have your old template, but if you could send me the newest copy, that would be awesome.
Sure.
As for everyone else, though, we do appreciate you guys joining us. Rob, I appreciate the questions. If you guys do have questions, or if any of the information that Todd spoke about today sparked any ideas or questions, feel free to either reach out to myself or support. We'd be happy to help you. And as always, we will be doing this every Wednesday at 2 p.m. So feel free to join us again.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. I
Thank you
appreciate
guys all for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.